It's been a while, but it's a new year, and I'm back. Roll the titles. So I'm quite excited to be back on YouTube. I've been off for, must be like a month now, because I have moved into my new place and it has no internet until now. So yeah, I've been on my mobile, my new mobile, which actually can't upload videos to YouTube because it's quite a basic phone. So I got the internet put in, and that's how you're seeing this video. But I thought I would do a little video as to, well, to tell you why this year wasn't such a festive year for like Christmas and New Year. I mean, for starters, I had my nan in hospital. She went in for a valve replacement, and we think he might have done something else, but we never actually got to talk to the surgeon afterwards because he went on holiday. But yeah, it was like he thought he saw an aneurysm or something, and he was going to do that while he was in there. There were a few things happening after the operation, which basically meant that instead of her being in like the intensive care and then on the normal ward afterwards for like a week or 10 days or something, it was like pushing on 2 weeks. And you know, they were still having to check her blood pressure and a heart rate and breathing exercises and general exercise and rest and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, it was a bit of a manic one. But she came home on New Year's Eve, and we had about, I think it's about 7 hours of the year left, and she made it home. So she is back at my mum's, and she's doing really well. So that's big relief off there. But there's quite a few things that happened over Christmas and New Year, which basically meant that it wasn't a really festive time of the year because you were just sat there going, oh my god. So it was on, I believe it was on Boxing Day, or I think it might have been Christmas night, one of them, and there was a student which had come over to Manchester, an area called Salford, and he'd come over from India to go to university here. Hadn't actually been here that long. I think it was about 3 months he'd been here, and he'd been on a night out, as every student does over Christmas in Manchester, but when coming home, him and his friends were at the McDonalds, and basically he got shot and killed at near enough point blank range, which I don't really know what that means, but I presume it's just like the guns are there. I'm lost for words to try and describe. I mean, Salford to where I am is about, if I'm using public transport, it's about half an hour away. And I can't help but think it was because he was an Indian student over here. You know, he wasn't, I mean, he'd been here like, what, 3 months, so there is no chance that he's going to be involved in like gun crime and knife crime and all that sort of stuff. It was outside a McDonald's restaurant, which, if you are going to be involved in stuff like that, it's very, very rare that actually you're going to get killed outside a McDonald's, especially at that time of the year as well. The person who the police have charged and arrested for having actually pulled the trigger, he's got mental issues, like serious mental issues. I mean, back in August of last year, the world saw the UK riots and how this country just descended into the police couldn't control it, the government couldn't control it, but yet they still refused to bring out the army or use heavier tactics. Idiots. But you know, we saw how that was, and how for the authority there was a complete lack of respect. Now, in the court system over here in the UK, I don't know what it's like around the rest of the world, but we have in court always remained respectful. It doesn't matter what crime you've done. If you're in court, you still stand up when you're told stand up. This fella doesn't. He gave his name. We already know that his name's Kieran, but he already gave his name as Psycho in the court. He did that twice. He also refused to stand up. So already, I mean, this is like early on, and I know that this video isn't going to be uploaded for like another week or so, so things might have progressed. But as things stand at the moment, the judge has basically thrown him out of court. I think he's due back in either later on today or tomorrow. And it looks like this judge could actually be quite tough with him here, which is good. People who know me know that I've said for many a year now that I don't think that the UK actually has much of a justice system at all. The one thing that got to me about this is the fact that it isn't a million miles away from home, and it's unbelievable for me to have to think that in an area like that, that hate crimes can still happen like that. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, like judging people on the colour of their skin. How is that ever right? I don't get it. I really do not understand it. And for me, that really put a dampener on Christmas, because it wasn't a million miles away from home, and it was stupid. Like really stupid. I mean, if he'd come over here and had been doing stupidly bad things, then you can sort of put a bit of an excuse to it and go, well, yeah, okay, it was bad that it happened, but he had been involved in all of this stuff, so, you know, but it's just unbelievable. Really unbelievable. So, yeah. I mean, that said, on Boxing Day over here, again, it's probably the same throughout the world, but Boxing Day, the day after Christmas, is when our sales start along the high streets, and this year was no different. London on Oxford Street, always busy on Boxing Day. Doesn't matter if there's a sale on or not, it's busy. And this year, again, no exception to that. And the shop Foot Locker had to be closed in the afternoon. The road had to be shut off, well, most of the road, because a gang member, I believe, had been stabbed, and it turned out to be fatal. And, you know, even when the police got there, because it was in London, it's the capital of the UK, but when the police got there, there was still trouble kicking off, and I can honestly say I am so happy to see what happened, but the taser guns got out, and I was made up about it. I was like, fucking yes! It was just, it was brilliant to see that taser guns were getting used, and it's good to see that they're getting used more and more, because it's about time in the United Kingdom that the police actually got a little bit tough. And, you know, it's about time that people learned, if a police officer says to you, take 10 steps back, you take 10 steps back. You know, you have respect for the people who one day could actually save your life. You know, let's get some like pyramid scheme here. There's like the general public, the police, and then obviously the people who are in charge of the police and blah blah blah. But the police are above you. When they're on duty, the police are above you, and if they say move back, move back. And if you don't move back, if you are arguing with them and you're giving them trouble, I fully support them getting out their taser guns and making sure that you move back. Like, I was made up to see that happened. The incident itself, again, put a real dampener on the festive period this year, because you know you don't like to think that during the season of goodwill that things like that happen, but apparently they do. Whether this person was involved heavily in the gang or not, and whatever reason there was behind the killing, it's still not right. You know, a person's death can never be the answer to something. And, you know, although I've not killed anyone, I might have wished it upon them at some point if they've really pissed me off. But, you know, I would never want to see anyone die because they'd done wrong to me, because that isn't justice. You know, there is no reason as to why people should have to lose their lives, no matter what they've done. You know, I think that if they're alive, you can do a lot worse to them than death. So, you know, find another way around it. I can be evil when I want to be. Where my mother works, they have a bit to do with the social services over here, who, for those of you who don't know, they're the government body to like look after children. And you know, if a child goes into hospital like until about 10 or 11 years old, something like that, if they go into hospital with a broken leg or something like that, then it's up to social services to ask the questions, going, well, how was this leg broken? What's life like at home for this child? And look into things. And if they think that the child isn't safe, then they're the ones to take the child away and find a new life for this child, so to speak. And one thing that really got to me was a couple in America who I have contact with, not on a regular basis, but I occasionally tweet them or message them on Facebook or things like that. You know, I have contact with them a little bit, and they take in foster children, and they got called back to go to a hospital to go and pick up a child which had been in their care, but had gone on to this new life, but then had been beaten and had both arms broken. And I only saw this on Facebook, and obviously they can't name names, they can't say too much about the actual incident, but it only takes that one or two sentences, seeing that, you know, over a festive period, that something like that has happened to a child who has already been through a lot anyway, you know, through having to be in foster care anyway during a festive period. I mean, okay, the child's not spending Christmas alone, which is brilliant in itself, because no one should have to spend Christmas alone, but for something like that to happen, it's unbelievable, like really unbelievable. And I'm not going to name names, but you know, the people who had to deal with this situation will know who they are, and I really hope that this child is doing well, and you know, I am still, after reading all of this and seeing all the bad news and everything over this time of year, I'm still a strong believer in karma. So the rule of karma is that, you know, this child has had to suffer a lot, but what goes around comes around. I mean, this child has had wrong done to it, so there will definitely be some goodness on the way. I mean, whether the goodness is that the child goes back into fostering into a safe home, as like a safe environment, or I personally think it would be something more than that. You know, there will be a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. But the people who have done that to a child, the people who did the stabbing on Oxford Street, the man who, you know, shot the Indian student in Salford, karma will catch up with you. And if you think that, like, the police or social services or the court system or prison, if you think that is bad karma, that's nothing. That is seriously nothing. And I can't wait for the day that I find out that karma has actually got a steamroller and ran you over, like flattened you out. I wish that so hard on these people, because it's meant to be a good time of year and a season of goodwill, but it wasn't. And you know, it just so that's kind of my thing. That's kind of why Christmas wasn't that good this year. I mean, the actual Christmas day for me, I had slept over in my new place on Christmas Eve, walked over to my mum's on Christmas Day. We did a little bit of a buffet and we took it down to the hospital. My nana had her own little, like, side room, so to speak, where she had like her own bed, her own television, her own little ensuite shower room thing. It was dead nice. So we had a big table blanket that got thrown over the bed, and we just put out all these sandwiches and sausage rolls and everything. And you know, and we had the nurses coming in. We gave them a load of mince pies, and yeah, it was, considering what the circumstances were, it was a good Christmas. But obviously, you know, it wasn't spent at home, so it wasn't great. My only final bit to this is that the operation that my nan went through is the open heart surgery, and it was done by a doctor, but I think it's just that he prefers to be called Mr. Modi. And if you're watching this and you are involved with Broad Green Hospital in Liverpool, if you are with Mr. Modi, you're in good hands. He's a brilliant. He's just brilliant at what he does. He explained in no, you know, there was no bullshit. He explained the risks of this operation and what he thought would actually happen, you know, after the operation, and what the aftercare would be like and that sort of thing. He did the operation, it went well, and obviously I'm not going to be the one to show it to you, but the actual scar that is left behind, they call it the zipper club because of like the stitches and everything. It's meant to look like you have a zip going down your chest. She doesn't have that. It is just a really smooth line, which actually in some parts you just think it's skin, you know. It's amazing to look at considering what's happened. It's just amazing. But then, like, the aftercare itself at Broad Green Hospital in Liverpool, like the intensive care, my nana was on the PACU ward, which is POCCU ward, and I can never remember the name of it. I think it's something like post-operative critical care unit. I think that's what it is, but it's POCU for short, which I think is a really cute name. POCU. Oh. But those nurses are on a one-to-one basis, or like 1-to-2, with the patients that they have in there. Those nurses work like really just stupid hours. They're like ridiculous. But they always have a smile on their face, and you know, they're really chatty, and The first couple of nights that my nana was in there, she had all the machines behind the bed for just everything. But there was one screen that was near to where I was sat, and it was showing off all these graphs and beeping and numbers and everything, and I was getting really confused by it. And the nurses explained to me what it meant, and they were like, well, that red one at the top, that's the heartbeat. That one's like the blood oxygen level, that one's her breathing, just everything. And it was really interesting to find out. Then she went on to like a normal ward. I think, oh God, what was she on? It wasn't oak, it was, oh God, it's another tree. They've named them after trees, the wards. And it wasn't oak, but she had a heart monitor off oak. I can't remember what it was. If I remember what it is, I will put it in the description bit below. So have a little read. But again, you know, those nurses, they don't work on a one-to-one basis. In fact, I would say, like, all the times that I was in there, and at different times during the day and everything, they are on the feet, rushing round. They have so much work to do, and yet they still manage to do it with a massive smile on their face, even though, you know, they were missing out on their Christmas Day to look after other people. You know, some of them would have been spending their New Year, like actually going over midnight into New Year's Day. They would have been in there giving care to other people, and that's an amazing thing. So yes, so thank you for watching. I will be trying to do regular uploads in the future. I hope you all had a really good Christmas and New Year, and I will see you soon.